Welcome back to Conscious Thinking with EddyEd. I am going to be doing a video from Ruslan, KD. You guys may know him, may not. This is another video regarding end times prophecy, and all these things that we see continuing to be a thing here. But it's a video he did from a Joe Rogan podcast. Apparently, this is something that is confirmed with a spooky end times prophecy. So let's hop straight into it. I don't know what it's about. I haven't watched it yet, but I'm about to right now with you guys. So let's dive in.
Because a lot of it seems too on the money. Is someone really trying to warn us?
Riley Gaines, Joe Rogan, they have a very interesting conversation about Jesus, the second coming, in light of all the crazy stuff that's been going on.
Federal agents raided 2 homes of rapper Sean Diddy Combs on Wednesday, saying that he is under investigation for sex trafficking.
Is there actually an attack on family at the moment?
I think there is, and I'm so sensitive to it because I think family is the backbone of America.
But before we get into that, guys, my name is Ruslan. This channel exists to encourage, empower, and inspire you to live a life that blesses God. If you're new here or if you're not new here, please make sure you subscribe, as a huge percentage of the people who watch this channel, unfortunately, are not. All right, let's get into this video. Shout out to Riley Gaines. She tied with Leah Thomas at the time where Leah Thomas had that medal, and then she spoke out against it. She specifically shared the graphic details of her being in the locker room and having to change, right? And those specific details. So, but here they get into her faith, which is really interesting.
Let's go.
I think there's a separate conversation that needs to be had involving CPS, because again, that's disgusting, to say the least.
And it's always been morally reprehensible. It's always been a thing that we wanted to kill people for. And now all of a sudden we're saying that it's an identity. Again, if I was trying to destroy a country, I would throw that into the educational system. I'd make it seem virtuous to discuss this in an open-minded and objective way. Like, they can't help who they identify with.
Well, and honestly, right, like, again, being a Christian, the Bible tells us that we will reach a point, and Paul says it in Acts and Romans and different places. He tells us that we will reach a point where bitter is seen as sweet, dark is seen as light, and evil is seen as moral.
Yeah, good is evil, and evil will become informed and presented as good. She is 100% right. This is happening right now, guys. This is not something that's mythical or, no. Why is something so strange being pushed to be accepted as good? That's the question we're facing right here. And we do see things that are strange, and I'll say it again, strange. These things that are trying to be pushed to us that are strange, but they're posed as being good because you have to accept people, whatever the case. I am, passionate about making the obvious plain, because we as Christians, we can't stand by that. You know what I mean? Like, we're not gonna accept that as truth or accept that as good when we know that it's evil. And the word clearly gives us those warnings and clearly gives us those examples of what is to come.
She's preaching.
Amen. That's kind of what we're seeing nowadays.
It's kind of what we're seeing nowadays. So I am with her. I think.
Why did no one tell Florida drivers about this new rule?
If you are currently insured, drive less than 50 miles a day, and live in a qualified zip code.
This stuff has always been here to some degrees. I think what's happened is that the internet has just made everything compound so much faster, because there's not a informational delay any longer. Just get information to people super duper
So you just
fast.
know how much darkness is out there immediately.
Yeah. And this stuff was happening when I was in high school 20 years ago, right? You had the proliferation back then was, you had like the RuPaul's, who's, by the way, now accused of all kinds of crazy essay.
Yikes.
Had his own show on television, cross-dressing, all that. In high school, this was the proliferation of a lot of girls experimenting and saying they were bi. So now it's the stuff. Back then, it was the bi stuff. Every girl was bi. They were experimenting. And you know what? 95% of these girls that were out here all grew up, had kids with dudes, or in heterosexual relationships. The dangerous stuff about the Transformer stuff is that some of that stuff is irreversible. But the same deception was on people 20 years ago when I was in high school, public school kid, by the way, as it is now. So I think this stuff's been, I just think the internet just compounded it and exploded it.
It's undeniable that that's not what we're seeing now. And look, that's not to say that people who identify as trans are evil. I don't necessarily think that. But what is evil is deception.
She worded that so carefully. I don't necessarily think that.
Yeah.
Riley, it's fair to say that all of us outside of Christ are evil. Jesus said so, right? You who are evil know how to give good gifts. This is in Matthew chapter 7. There's none righteous, not one. So I think our natural state is broken, and our natural state isn't neutral, right? It's just what degree of depravity do you want to go into?
It's just when you're talking about the T community,
Sure.
give them the benefit of
T.
the doubt.
The T.
Right?
Manipulation is evil. Temptation is evil. Lying and affirming delusions, that's evil. And that's exactly how Satan works and how he operates, is in the darkness. But now a lot of it is coming to light. Again, thanks to people like Elon Musk.
It sounds loony when we start having these kind of conversations.
Looney
about,
Tune.
Satan and evil and good and, and biblical stories. But as time goes on, I think that what the Bible is I think at one point in time, there was a very sophisticated society that got wiped out by some sort of a massive natural disaster. And
John 5:24, Jesus says, "Those who believe my message and believe in God who sent me will have eternal life. They will never be condemned for their sins because they have." Rogan's view on the scriptures is funny. So he thinks there's a super duper advanced industrialized society, and then they get wiped out.
He kind of pieces together multiple conspiracies that he has, which is like, oh, the people that built the pyramids were actually super advanced, and then we lost all that, so we thought they had to build it with sticks and stones.
Now, to his point, the timing of this is off, but there was the Tower of Babel being built, right? And then all of a sudden they can't speak the same language anymore. Darkness. Right? So maybe he's onto something, but I'm going through Genesis with Levi right now, and the flood story is very early on. So I think the sequencing is a little bit off, right? Like the flood narrative happens, I want to say Genesis chapter 7, chapter 8. It's pretty early when Noah's story is. So to say there was an entire advanced civilization before that, I don't know about that. But there does seem to be some advancement with the Tower of Babel, and then they are separated with different languages.
then over time, they told the stories that they had learned since they stopped writing things down, and they probably had to live like barbarians for thousands of years. But they always had the stories. It like literally the Big Bang. In the beginning, there was light. If you told that for thousands of years, that's what that would be.
Right.
The Adam and Eve in the garden, the creation, that someone created this. Like that they were trying to tell us, and that men can go down evil, wicked ways, and it can lead to destruction. And these are some of the symptoms that you'll see when it leads to destruction. It's like this is like a map of civilization.
Right.
It's just so old, and it's been translated so many times from ancient Hebrew and Aramaic and all these different languages down to Greek and Latin and English finally. It's like there's so much like what was really said, what was really going on, because a lot of it seems too on the money. Like if we wanted to try to...
A lot of it seems
Too on the money?
on the money.
Whoa.
That's a bar. Yeah, Rogan, man. Rogan, too on the money.
It's funny how he thinks, though, that we lost a bunch of stuff in translation, but then he also says it's too on the money. Because technically, if things were lost in translation, when you read them back, they would seem kind of gibberishy. They wouldn't really make sense.
Yep.
But he's also admitting that when you read the Bible, it's kind of on the money. Kind of speaks to exactly what people are going through and the things that happen.
Yep.
And so it's like those two thoughts don't compute, that it has to be lost in translation and that it's also on the money. It's like it's on the money because we got the right translation.
Yes. Because the discovery of additional manuscripts, the ability to translate not from the Koinonia Greek to Latin to English, right? But from Koinonia Greek to English. Right, like they can go back and translate that stuff now, right? And so I think, and even just the sheer number of manuscripts communicate that like it's more accurate than not. Yeah. And that's why it's on the money.
Really going on, because a lot of it seems too on the money. Like if we wanted to try to put this through some sort of a logical filter or figure out like, is someone really trying to warn us about the natural progression that all societies and all civilizations go down if you don't have a moral compass and if you don't follow and adhere to the rules of God?
Well,
have you ever been in a cold plunge? Recently, we attended a fitness event in Jacksonville, Florida to give hundreds of people the chance to try our latest customizable cold tank.
There's still stuff that hasn't yet, right? Like what has been prophesied that hasn't yet happened. So time will tell, right? I think Jesus is his return is past due.
Like Dr. Manhattan.
Yeah.
If that would be the wildest, forget about UFOs. Right? UFOs would be pretty wild. UFOs on the White House lawn would be wild. Jesus on the White House lawn, wow. That would be the game changer.
I pray for that to come back,
God, you
please.
think people would even believe it? They would think, oh my God, this is Illuminati. Just
Our
like-
media would spin it some
well,
way.
just people on Reddit, like the people that are
Reddit.
like
what a
4chan people.
platform.
What a
What a
platform.
platform.
Yo, Jesus coming back being spun into Illuminati is a very interesting.
It's a very 2024 take, and that's probably accurate too, which is really amazing.
People would lose it. When Jesus comes back, people will lose it.
Jay-Z's boy has come.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think it sounds like he's open to Jesus physically coming back.
Sounds like he's open to Jesus physically coming back the same way he's open to UFOs, but probably more so UFOs.
But probably,
than Jesus.
yeah, I think more Jesus than UFOs now.
I think more UFOs, because if you're leaning more Jesus, you would also be faced with the reality of what him coming back means, and I don't think Joe Rogan has that sort of conviction yet, from what I see.
Yep.
Like, it doesn't, like, if you're like, oh, Jesus could come back, should be scary to you if you actually believe that's a possibility.
Yeah.
Whereas aliens, you're like, they're just hanging out.
Sure.
They're just, it's another life form.
Just
It's not a
hanging
big
out.
deal.
Yep.
Yeah.
Shout out
Visual
to Riley Gaines. We're working on having her on the channel.
Hey man, yeah. Evil, good, good, evil. Like we're seeing it now. And if you want examples, I already named it, and there's plenty more examples. This is how it's playing out. If you're blinded to it, I don't know how, but it's time for you to consciously think what's in front of you. Think about what's in front of you. Consciously think about what has already happened and what is happening, because we're seeing things play out, and it's not random, or it's not just whatever you want to categorize it at to not validate the reality. It's not that. But anyway, hope you guys are consciously thinking, because it's very important that you understand which side you're on, and if you're not on the right side, understanding which side you need to be on. And that side, I tell you, if you want to live past this life in a place where there's peace, that side is Christ. If you don't believe that, I encourage you to open the Bible. I encourage you to find somebody that knows and that is living a Christian lifestyle seriously. Have a conversation with them. I encourage you to pray to God, to the one and only true God, and ask him to help you see and help you come to know him, because that's the winning side. The other side is the losing side. As plain as that. If you're not even actively doing anything satanic, trust me, you're not on the right side still. You're still on. If you're not for Christ, you're on the other side. That's just the way it's set up. So please, really think about this and really understand where you are and where you want to go, and make those moves. It's EddyEd. You watch your conscious thinking. Catch you guys next video. Oh, also, drop your thoughts in the comments. Peace.